Alright, another video time. Yet another one. But, this one, I'm still sniffling a little bit. Probably not as bad as that other video, but, I got some various allergies going on, I think. It's a long story. There's a lot of bleach in my house right now, and I honestly think that probably has a lot to do with it. I think the bleach is messing with my nose. But at any rate, that's a long story. I wanted to talk about a few things here. First of all, the Logitech G Cloud, of course, has been my latest little kind of mini obsession. Really want it. And I wanted to talk about a few things. First of all, I wanted to just briefly mention how much hate this thing is getting now, unsurprisingly. Like this video. If you just search Logitech G Cloud, and I think this is filtered by in the last day, you get stuff like, this Logitech G Cloud is a joke. And then Review Tech USA, like, oh, this, I seen he's a big YouTuber, but I don't see his video here, so it must have been more than a day old. But Review Tech USA is a big YouTuber, and I saw he did a big negative video on it, about how terrible it is and stuff. And he's almost always wrong. Like, pretty much if he says it's bad, then it's good, and vice versa. I mean, he's an idiot. A lot of these people I've noticed that if they're like big Sony fanboys, like Review Tech USA and John Linneman at Digital Foundry, they don't like this. Maybe because it's Xbox associated, I guess, now that I look at this and notice the Xbox logo there. But yeah, and a lot of Steamdeck fanboys really hate this thing. Like, why? Like, why? Who cares, man? Like, why would you go out and champion for freaking Steamdeck so Valve can make some more billions of dollars? It's so stupid. Because I saw that, I noticed that on the Logitech website they had user reviews, and one of the YouTubers, it was actually Lou of, I forget the name of his channel, but his name's Lou, and he has a really popular, like, tech channel. And, I mean, his first name's Lou. I forgot his tech. I remember he really came to fame that I saw him when he broke the iPhone, the breaking iPhone scandal. I mean, he was famous before that, but that was when I really saw where he got like millions, like tens of millions of views on his video where he snapped the iPhone. But anyways, I think he has a channel also called More Lou Later, or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, the point is that, oh, in his video he mentioned, just in passing, he kind of does this round table thing, like a secondary show. It's not real scripted, with some dudes who sit around with him as employees, I guess. And, and then he was just kind of talking about the G Cloud. And he mentioned, he was like, oh yeah, I see, he tried to leave a review on the Logitech website. He tried to rate it 2 stars or something, and it didn't go through. And he's like, oh look, they're only allowing 5-star reviews or something. So I guess internet trolls caught on to that, because when I went to the Logitech website the next day, there was a bunch of reviews, and they were all like Steamdeck fanboys saying, like, and they'd all done 5-star reviews, but they were all their comments were like, this is a great handheld. If you want to be an idiot and not buy the Steamdeck, which is greater in was much better. You know, all the comments were stupid like that. But they just left 5-star reviews because they figured out that that's all that Logitech was approving. And I saw, so that just shows me how much the Steam fanboys just have a hate complex for this thing already. Like, every review on the Logitech website practically was like, oh, this thing sucks. Steamdeck is so much better. I'm like, who cares? Who asked you, you know? Who made it? Steamdeck versus G Cloud. It's so stupid. But that's why I'm going to title this video something about how G Cloud kills Steamdeck or something, because I'm going to go against the grain as I want to do. That's why my channel will never be famous, because it's all based on an algorithm. And I get a lot of dislikes on my video. That's going to cause me to get even more dislikes. Some of my videos never percolate in the search results, so I don't get a whole ton of views. I'm aware of all this, but anyways. Well, besides that my videos suck might be another reason. But, so yeah, point is, like, there's already like this Steamdeck fanboy brigade, which is predictable enough because Valve has the most fanboys this side of Sony or Nvidia. Gotta love these multi-billion-dollar corporation apologists and defenders. Anyways, I would say the G Cloud has tons of advantages over the Steam Deck. Starting with like 8 times the battery life, just throwing it out there. But and another thing is, but anyways, that was just a little aside of something I noticed. It's getting a lot of hate, unsurprisingly. I wanted to talk though about a couple things. My number one. I'll try to keep this video a little quick for once in my life because it's past my bedtime. Dang, my nose is acting up so much like I keep having to sneeze. Naturally, just when I go to make this video. Hang on 1 minute, please. Okay, I went and sneezed and blew my nose. Sorry for that. But I know one thing that works on my allergies, which is Benadryl, but then it always makes me sleepy. And it's like I've tried every kind of allergy, over-the-counter allergy medication there is. Probably should talk to my doctor about it, but I don't know what he's going to say. And I only go like once a year. I tried every over-the-counter allergy medication known to man. None of them work except for Benadryl, and that makes me really sleepy. Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah, and then let's go. So one of the main topics I wanted to hit here, besides all the hate, about 3 or 4 of them. But the second one was just as I've been thinking more about the X Cloud, I'm kind of not as excited about it as I once was. And the main issue I have with it that's crystallized in the couple days as it came out is the Snapdragon 720G and 4 gigabytes of RAM is kind of weak. It's like a mid-range phone. It's not terrible, mind you. If you just think, they can put any crappy CPU in here, and it can be the lowest end CPU available. They didn't do that. It's kind of a mid-range CPU, to be honest. Maybe a lower mid-range, I'd call it. They could have gone lower, is what point I'm trying to make. It's got a little punch to it, but the emphasis is kind of on little. It's not it should be plenty snappy to navigate the interface and everything like that, for sure. But I wish it had a more powerful chip, because to me, even though I know they're completely marketing it as a cloud gaming device, I personally strongly believe that's a bit misguided. I believe that should be a part of what they market it as, but that it also needs to be able to do emulation, especially since it's going to be running Android. So emulators are going to be a natural on this. And for me personally, there's a lot of what I'm interested in. I'm coming from a Chinese retro handheld interest situation and stuff. I actually haven't owned or played a ton of Chinese retro handhelds. I only have one, which is the Retro Pocket 2 Plus. But so coming from that, where the heck was I? Oh yeah, so the 720G, I tried to kind of compare it to some other chips. To give you an example, these are actually going to, I guess, make it look bad, because I compared it to the very newest cutting-edge Snapdragon out there, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, and then the Snapdragon 845, which is in the AYN Odin, which is a $200 to $300 device that's often compared to this. So you can just get an idea. Against the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which is, like I said, the very latest and greatest, you find in the Galaxy S22 Plus, etc. Well, they have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 Plus now, which is just about 10% faster than the 8 Gen 1. But it's like, Qualcomm always does that. They make the chip, and then like 8 months later or something, they come out with one that's a little bit overclocked. But it's not really a full generation at all. But anyways, this is like basically the most powerful Snapdragon available. And you can see So this is kind of an unfair comparison, but compared to the 720G, you see it's just crushing it, particularly in the graphics. It's basically like 9 times as powerful in GPU, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 as the 720G. But you can see here the some of the gaming, it actually looks pretty decent on the 720G. Like if I'm taking this to, as I understand it, so it's running PUBG Mobile at like 43 FPS high settings versus the 8 Gen 1 at 88 frames per second ultra settings. But this is plenty playable over here, this 43 FPS. Call of Duty Mobile, same kind of deal. But here's one that's concerning a little bit, is that it runs Fortnite only at 28 FPS at low settings. Whereas the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 was running Fortnite at 42 FPS at ultra settings. And I can vouch for this because one of the first things I did, I tried to get an idea of how good the 720G was. So I Googled that, and you come up with some phones. There's a Samsung one that has the 720G in them. And I think I just typed Fortnite because I know it's a popular game, and it's a 3D game. And it was struggling to run Fortnite to 720G. I mean, I think even at the lowest possible settings. Like, it was hitching a lot. Sometimes it would kind of go up to 30 FPS, but then it would dip to like 20 a lot. There was a lot of stutters and hitches. So yeah, 28 FPS maybe as an average sounds about right, if not a little lower. So yeah, it was struggling on Fortnite, which these benchmarks do seem to confirm. And here's a few others. I know Genshin Impact is a big game. Here it's running at 40 FPS Ultra on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. And 34 FPS, but only medium, which is very playable. Only medium on the 720G. And I would imagine Genshin Impact is like since it's like a really mass market game, that they're very cognizant of making sure it runs on anything. So it's probably pretty easy to run. It appears the phones they chose each had the same resolution, so that's good. But so, I mean, these benchmarks tell me that the 720G isn't bad on Android gaming. But like I said, Fortnite, it could be a lot better. And just the fact that in the graphics score 3D Mark Wildlife, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is 9-1. That's rough. And like, I'm kind of disappointed. And there's how many shading units, clock, and all this that it has. And you can see that the Adreno 618 and the 720G is really getting outclassed hard. About 8-1 in flops, something like that, or maybe 5-1, I guess. Even the max bandwidth is another eye-opener. The 8 Gen 1 is getting 51 gigabits, and the 720G is getting 13.9 gigabits. But again, that is kind of an unfair comparison because the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is released and announced in December 2021, a flagship chip, versus the 720G in January 2020, a mid-range chip. But yeah, so, and here's the biggest one I look at is honestly the Geekbench 5, just because I'm really familiar with it and I always look at it. And then the single core score is the most important one I've noticed. Much more important than multi-core score. And how I figured this out is from like Apple. Their iPads run like dual core chips, or at least they used to. They may be up to quad core by now. And even though they only had 2 cores and all these Android tablets are running like 8 cores, octa-core, a lot of times the Apple iPad like runs much smoother than most of these Androids. And you can say it's the software or whatever. No. And the reason is because the Apples would have, like, even though they only had 2 cores, those cores would have really high single core scores. So it just got back to the fact that single core performance is usually your limiter, no matter, even in modern times, where they can break tasks up and everything. I mean, it's good to have more cores and all that, but if you have to pick one, single core score is the most important thing. So here we see it's only about doubled up by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which isn't too bad. So it's you know, and in multi-core score, same deal. That's a little less important of a benchmark in my opinion, as I've stated. But yeah, and then 2.2, same deal. The 8 Gen 1 is about 3 times as powerful, so on and so forth. But yeah, this is the big one right here in my opinion. The Snapdragon 720G isn't too bad in that one. It's a decent single core score. And I'll also compare it to the Snapdragon 845, which is in the AYN Odin Now, the thing about the A1 Odin chip, though, is it's overclocked a bunch over what's in phones because it's in a handheld with a fan, I believe. So it's more analogous to at least the Snapdragon 855, as I understand it, maybe even more. I don't know all the details, but would be just a stock Snapdragon 845 in a phone, I assume. And here we can see the 720G actually holds up pretty well. Like, let's go to that same Geekbench single-core score I like so much, and we see that it actually beats the 845. The multi-core score, though, the 845 beats it by a little bit, but like I said, this is the more important score in my opinion. But you can see, like, overall, they ranked, like, the Antutu, it's, about a third more powerful there. Seems pretty clear the 845 is the better chip. I guess they have their own kind of ranking, and they put the Snapdragon 845 better in CPU performance and significantly better in gaming performance, about 50%. But you can see the Snapdragon 720G is not out of the ballpark of the Snapdragon 845, which one of the constant arguments I hear about, against the Logitech G Cloud is, well, just get an AYN Odin that's much more powerful and only $200. They always use the lowest end AYN Odin that's kind of dodgy, like it uses the MediaTek chip and stuff. But yeah, I know the $300 version of the AYN Odin uses the Snapdragon 845, but it's more powerful than this, like because it's overclocked a lot, because they've got the cooling to do it, and it's not in a little thin phone. So it's not a fair comparison, but it does give you just some idea of how stock. And for all I know, maybe the Snapdragon G in this thing is clocked up too. I kind of doubt it because Logitech hasn't said anything about that. But I guess it could be. We'll have to see when it comes out. But I would just assume it's stock for now. But then, I did want to point out that the 720G GPU is falling behind pretty hard here. You can see. This is one thing I don't like, is like when the 720G, I'm trying to understand that the G line is supposed to be like for graphics or something like that, or gaming or something. So I would think they paired like a little bit weaker CPU maybe with a little bit more powerful GPU. So if anything, I would expect the GPU to overperform versus these other chips. Like you can see, it actually had better single core performance from the CPU and so on and so forth, and it wasn't far behind in multi-core. Then the GPU is the part that's getting killed, which seems, it's almost, it's like almost 2-to-1 in a way in flops. So it seems stupid to me that Qualcomm does it this way. I would think the 720G, you would look, the max bandwidth is only about half. I would think the 720G, the G would stand for graphics, and it would have an overperforming GPU, if anything. But they seem to have reversed it, and it has a little bit less performant, GPU compared to the CPU than vice versa. And here's their little comparisons, and once again we see Fortnite can be handled pretty easy, and the 645 or the 845 is a pretty old CPU too. So this is kind of damning in a lot of ways, but it is what it is in the AYN Odin. See, it went Snapdragon 845, 855, 865, 888, and the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. So the 845 was, I think, 2018. Well, it'll tell you when it's announced. Flagship chip. But the games are not too far behind, so it is what it is. But it doesn't lose to the Snapdragon 845 by too bad. Announced. Snapdragon 845 would have been announced in December 2017, so yes, it was a 2018 chip, because the announced dates on these is before they actually came out. And then the 720G is quite a bit newer, but it's a little bit less powerful. But yeah, so that's it versus the Snapdragon 845, just to give you a couple of ideas of where it stands. I would say it's like a lower mid-range chip, but it's definitely not a low-end chip, because I've seen a lot of chips in like Samsung tablets and stuff that are terrible. They generally get around 300 in this Geekbench 5 single-core score that I'm so interested in. These like the Snapdragon, the Samsung S6 Lite tablet, for example. So this is not terrible. Like I said, a lot of the Samsung mid to low end tablets will do worse than this. So I just don't want to give the impression that this is like an awful low end chip. It's definitely not. It's definitely a mid-range, but it's definitely a lower mid-range. So I just wanted to give some idea there. I probably should have also compared it to something like the CPU in one of these, or like the Samsung A8 or what is it, Galaxy Tab A or something like that. They're like low end tablet right now. I remember it has a Unisoc CPU and the single core score is like 380. So this one's 575 versus the Galaxy Tab A's single core score of 380. So it's like 40% more powerful than the chip in the CPU in the Galaxy Tab A, for example. So I don't want to just compare, make it look terrible. It's not bad, but it's just not great. Now, having covered that, I wanted to go into a new thing that's happening here, which is, I also wanted to touch on sales issues. The G Cloud does seem to be selling okay for what it's worth. Here, it's listed in micro consoles rather than gaming at Amazon, so it's hard to tell. And all the micro consoles, I don't know exactly what that means because it seems pretty, like, you can see for yourself, like, what is all this stuff? I don't know what they define as a micro console. Like this wireless, it's like this knockoff PS4 controller, which probably went on sale. The G Cloud had been #1 though. This is the first time I looked today, and it dropped to #2, which, like I said, may have been, a lot of these bestseller rankings will depend. Like this controller may have gone on sale today or something like that, or yesterday, so it bounces up way high up the rankings. These rankings have like a momentum component to them, and then it'll slowly fall back down once it goes off sale. I mean, I'm just speculating that that's what happened. Although the sales should have probably been better than the minus 15% they're showing there. So who knows? But you can see, these are all just like off-brand. The one thing I can compare to is the GameSir. I know this is a pretty popular controller grip, right up there with the Razer Kishi and whatnot. And it's only number 21. Here's another GameSir. So it's beating the GameSirs. Here's more GameSirs. Power Moga controller. You know what I mean? It's beating all the other phone controllers. Here's one of these things, a clip-on controller. It's beating all those. So you can't really make a lot out of how well it's selling, that it's beating this type of stuff. But it's better than, it's better than nothing. And I noticed on Logitech website it also has this label that says bestseller. Okay, absolutely no info about what that means. Who the hell knows what Logitech classifies as a quote-unquote bestseller. But it's another indication that it might be selling pretty decent. So, yeah, just wanted to point that out. It seems to be selling surprisingly well, which is good. Now, on to the third topic of this video, which is, as we see here, apparently Razer is making some competition. Let me go ahead and play this video. Making some competition for it, and they put out a teaser video on Twitter of something called the Razer, or Razer. It doesn't have a name, so they're calling it maybe like the Razer 5G handheld. Full review at RazerCon, it says, which I found out is October 15th. And that's great because I pre-ordered the Logitech G Cloud, and it is released on October 18th. So that will be just in time for me to make a decision if I want to cancel my G Cloud pre-order and maybe look at this thing instead. And why I might want to look at this thing is because apparently, you can see this is a little teaser video, so you can see as much as I do. But they had apparently announced some stuff before. Well, not exactly, but this is in theory what we'd be looking at. As you can see from IGN here, Razer Snapdragon G3X gaming platform, hands-on images. Now what this is something that happened a few months ago. I think it was like December of 2021. And this was like a prototype. Like a, I forget what, there's a name for this type of thing. It's called like a proof of concept or something. So it wasn't actually anything they were going to make. It was just an idea. But it was by Razer. See, Razer. And so it's probably basically what this Razer thing that was being teased. Here's the whole thing. Yeah, this is probably like this, but like updated to be an actual console. It probably doesn't look exactly like this. This was like a prototype version, is what I'm trying to say. Because they mentioned in like this story on IGN, which is from like December last year, this is just an idea, a mock-up almost. Not a real handheld, but presumably that's now a real handheld. Probably looks a little more professional and whatnot than this did at the time. So this was it, and you can see it has almost the same idea as the Logitech G Cloud. It has Game Pass, it has Chrome, very similar idea. Apparently. Probably cloud gaming based. But this Snapdragon G3X is apparently, I couldn't find much info about it, but it's going to be like a dedicated gaming chip, and it's really powerful apparently. I mean, where the 720G had a 575 score in the Geekbench, it had like a 1500. So you're talking about like 3 times as powerful. Now, I couldn't find out much benchmarks on the G3X, but I think everybody just assumes it's going to be quite powerful because it's actually purpose designed for gaming handhelds, which means it's probably designed to run in a higher thermal envelope than phones are, which means it's probably pretty beefy. So yeah, this is now a big fly in the ointment of the G Cloud, right? My first thought was, whoa, I might have to get this because it's going to be a lot more powerful, which is my main issue with the G Cloud. Powerful for local gaming. But then I saw the actual pictures of the thing, and I really don't like, this is the same reason I don't like the Razer Kishi. This is the same, and I discount all those people who say like, oh, just get a game sir if you're going to get the G Cloud in your phone and you're going to do 10 times more than this and blah, blah, blah. No, I have a Kishi. It's terrible. Playing in like this widescreen form factor sucks. Okay, first of all, the games are not designed for that. I wanted to compare. This is like what most games look like on these. They cut off the sides because smartphones are all very tall and narrow right now. That's what they've evolved to be. So they may have some gaudy screen size, like a lot of them are 6.5, 6.6, 6.8 inches diagonal, right? And the G Cloud is only 7 inches. So you might go, oh, it's almost as powerful. But look at this. What this shows you, this is fat. Now here's it compared to some phones up here in the upper left. I wish it wouldn't start playing. But you can see that it's more like the Nintendo Switch, where it's like tall. It's got a 16:9 aspect ratio, or the Steamdeck for that matter. Whereas these phone things, I'm trying not to mouse over it because then it'll start playing. These phone things like this one in the lower left right here, they have this long, very thin, that's the way all phones are designed. The phone's designed today with like 21:9 down to like 19:9 aspect ratios. Whereas the G Cloud has a 16:9 aspect ratio, which is much more like the Nintendo Switch. It's much more ideal for handheld to play. So that is why I'm not loving this this Android gaming handheld here. They talked about it here as well. Qualcomm Snapdragon G3, 5G equipped. And I like what this OLED with a 120Hz refresh rate. Don't care about that. So this thing looks pretty specced out, right? Which is nice, but I don't like the long, narrow, thin handheld aspect. And I'm wondering if they did that. That is because you could just smack a phone screen in there, and I bet you when they're sourcing displays, it's a lot cheaper to get one like that. That's a phone display that billions and billions of them are made than than otherwise. I also do not like what they show of the interface here. And remember, this is a mock-up, so it may change. But I just think the G Cloud looks so much better. So much better. Here's another example of like a controller and a phone, and how that's an awkward, unwieldy, small. Because once you can put the black bar, like this is just so much better. Once you put the black bars on top of a phone, where's that picture? You get a very small screen area, because most games are not going to be designed for like 21:9 aspect ratio. So most of them are going to cut off like this. So you got a small screen, and then you're making it, and this doesn't even do justice. It would probably be cut off more. So you get a small screen, and then you get an even smaller screen. You know, you're not getting very much. And I did a screen size calculator. So I did a 7-inch 16:9, and you get about 21-inch square inches of area. And here I did I just Googled what the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra aspect ratio is as an example of a modern flagship phone. And it was actually lower than I thought. I thought they were 21:9, but apparently the Galaxy S22 Ultra in particular is a 19.3:9. So it's a little less than I thought. But and then this so I went with that, and then this Razer handheld supposedly has a 6.65-inch display, at least the prototype did. So that gives you actually about 17 inches of actual square inches, and the Logitech gives you about 21. So you're getting a significant amount more screen area, but I think it's that was actually much closer than I thought it would be. But I think it's actually much worse than that, because you got to remember you're going to have these black bars in this one, because most games don't run in 21:9 resolution, you know. So once you add the black bars in, you're probably looking at like 14 or something inches of screen area, 14 or 15. So let's call it 14 so we can round it off. And this is 21. So you're getting like 50% more screen area on a big fat screen like the Logitech, as we see here in this picture, which probably isn't even true to life. The Logitech probably even has a much bigger advantage than this example shows, because all these are like squished down. So, and like this picture kind of shows it better, how you got a nice big fat screen. Steamdeck has that type of screen too. So this is much better to me. So that's why I'm not big on this Razer, because it looks like this. So, and I just, now granted this was a prototype, so maybe they've cleaned up the OS and made it look much better. Maybe they've cleaned up we'll see. But so it'll come down to price and everything else. Now, if it has a 6.6, if it uses the Snapdragon G3X, very powerful processor, it has a 6.65-inch OLED even. Although it's only 1080p, that's not a big deal to me. The G Cloud is 1080p as well. I don't really care about the 120 Hz refresh rate, but it doesn't hurt. It just shows it supports all the latest things. So, I mean, basically, we'll see. And I love what they said here in this article. It says, and yeah, it has 5G connectivity if anyone cares. You don't, because that'll mean paying a service fee to use it. Okay. See, I love that because it's so true. Like, all of these people are bashing the G Cloud, and a lot of them say something stupid like, oh, this thing doesn't even have 5G connectivity. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, literally, what are you talking about? What has 5G connectivity anymore? You know, as far as tablets and stuff. Like, tablets with SIM cards aren't a thing anymore. I mean, unless you're, like, super wealthy, why would you want that? You just hotspot off your phone. Because you know what 5G connectivity with a SIM card means? It means you pay for a monthly plan, you dolt. You know, and it ain't going to come cheap. It's going to be at least 20 or 30 bucks for like some kind of data. So you want to add, the G Cloud, people are saying it's too expensive. You want to add 30 bucks a month mandatory to that? That adds up to $360 a year. That's more than the thing costs to begin with. You know, all these news articles are trying to bash the G Cloud. It's too expensive. And they're also bashing it doesn't have 5G connectivity. Yeah, so it can cost even more, like way more, on a monthly basis, because you have exactly what this article says. They nailed it. Oh yeah, talking about the Razer one. It has 5G connectivity if anyone cares. You don't, because that'll mean paying a service fee to use it. Okay. They just freaking nailed it right there. So that kind of the actual fact that it has 5G connectivity kind of bugs me, because it doesn't just bode well for the design of this thing, but we'll see. Like I said, all the other specs are good. I just don't like the wide and tall screen, so we'll have to see how it goes. what the actual final specs are. Most importantly, the price, because people, I think that the prototype had 6 GB of RAM, which is actually not that outlandish, given that the Snapdragon G3X is like a really outlandish CPU apparently. But so that'd actually be a nice amount of RAM in my opinion, not too costly, but not better than 4 gigabytes. But I mean, just if it has this kind of phone, we'll have to see. But I don't think I would go for it. Like, this is truly an example of where, if you're going to do that, why would you just not get a phone? Now, you do get a nicer OS, and you would get maybe a lot more power than you would out of your phone in the G3X, depending on where it shakes out there, because it probably has active cooling, like a fan and stuff, so it probably clocks way higher than your phone chips. And we'll see, but as it stands, I don't really think that this type of phone with controls on the side is for me. So, unfortunately, at first I got kind of excited about this Razer thing. I thought, oh, maybe it's like the G Cloud, but it addresses my main concern with the G Cloud, which is the lack of power. Nah, it doesn't, because then it has the tall and narrow screen that I don't like. So we'll see. Right now I'm still leaning G Cloud, but I'm glad that this Razer handheld is getting announced on October 15th, so I can decide if I want to cancel my Logitech pre-order just in time right before it ships. But anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and that's another video on the Logitech G Cloud. So I'm still excited about it as of now. I still have it pre-ordered. Wish it was a little cheaper, wish it was a little more powerful, and had a little bit more RAM. But overall, I'm still, for some reason, really excited about it. One thing I tried to think about, I said this in another video, like, I try to put it as if this was just a Chinese handheld with that nice screen, and all it didn't have the nice OS, it didn't have a cloud gaming focus and integration, so it didn't have that, although you probably could do that with Android 11 anyway. It had like the really good Logitech build quality, all that for $299, and would I be interested? And the answer is quite possibly to probably, you know. And again, the Logitech also has like an American company behind it. That's an issue with all these Chinese handhelds. A lot of times they're really small operations with just a few people working for them. The customer service, you don't know what you're getting. They actually seem to be pretty good about that. But the issue is, if like, let's say you get a bad unit and you got to send it back, you literally have to ship it back to China. And I think sometimes they even want you to pay, I'm not sure, they may not, but either way, you're talking like weeks of time to ship it back to China, and then them to ship a replacement. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, you're just dealing with a company in China, and like I said, they're usually not big companies, is the thing. Like the AYN, the Retroid, the Ambernick, all these are like little companies, and those are like some of the bigger ones actually, for Chinese retro handhelds anyway. Those are names. There's some that are even, like AYN seems to really be a small operation. But yeah, so with the G Cloud, you know, you're buying from Logitech, a real American company that you'd be able to get returns, especially since I'm buying it from Amazon. You usually can't buy Chinese handhelds from Amazon. Razer will have all these advantages too, though. I'm not saying it's just a G Cloud. I'm just saying some reasons why the G Cloud's a good buy, in my opinion. I can buy it from Amazon when I know I get like bulletproof 30-day returns. That's nice, really nice. In fact, I saw some people on Reset Era talking about, you know, I want to save $30 because there's a code floating around for $30 off at Logitech, so you can get it for $270. But I'm not biting on that, because for me, the fact that Amazon has easy free returns is worth $30 to me. You know, in case I don't like it or whatever. I'll take Amazon's support any day for just a little bit more money, you know. So yeah, that's about all I had. I also wanted to mention that I think that this guy put it really well. That's why I had this comment bookmark. He says, I think somebody said blah blah blah. I would buy this, talking about the G Cloud, for $150. He says, I think a price like that would be hard to hit for any manufacturer, though. Even Amazon's own Fire HD 8 tablets, which are among the cheapest, come in at $134 for the 64GB model with ads. It has a lower resolution screen and worse internals. This is even with Amazon heavily subsidizing it and selling it primarily to promote the other services, as well as throwing ads on the lock screen. He's got a great point. He said it a lot better than me. Plus, he's not even mentioning that the Logitech has controls. Those aren't cheap. It's got dual analog sticks. It's got all these high quality buttons, just like an Xbox controller would or something. And they're not cheap. It's got all, like the Fire HD and all these other tablets you compare it to don't come with physical buttons. And I know there is like the Galaxy Tab A that's like a 10-inch screen, and it's like $229. So that's like a bigger screen and it's cheaper. But it's also only like 3 gigabytes. It has the Unisoc SoC I talked about. It, in a lot of ways it's worse. It's less powerful. It doesn't have the controls again, like the nice gaming controls. So I think that really the Logitech, the more you look at it, it's not a bad deal. Even though people always say, "Oh, Logitech's so overpriced," I don't even think they are in this case. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed the vid. Peace.